So there's no rule that says that you can't post a video about books coming out in September a little bit after the month has started. Does anyone need to know that I need to take my Claritin? I read the blurb and I literally was like, boop, basically adding to cart. So I don't know where she went. Also happens to be a psychopath. I am going to, that's not true. Or how late it is when they, oh my God, why can't I talk today? Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today we're gonna talk about a whole mess of books coming out in September. I know this is gonna post a little bit late, but because I, for the first time in like forever, actually made some reading plans with series September and then my itching need to read all the books that have to do with dark academia or boarding schools or schools of any kind, I wound up posting those videos first. So if you have missed those, I will link them and do all that fun stuff. But some of the books I want to read are actually new releases coming out in September. And you know, I always love to talk about the new releases. So I have a couple pre-orders. I have some US releases that have already been out in the UK that I've already read. And then I have just a whole bunch of other miscellaneous books that I want to talk about. So let's go. So the first book I want to talk about is a sequel, which I talked about in my series September video. I pre-ordered it and I am 1000% going to read it in the month of September because I'm really excited for it. And it's The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is the sequel to the Inheritance Games, which I read in December of last year. And I loved it so much. And I mentioned how I was like, oh, I really want to reread this before I read Hawthorne Legacy, but that's like a lot. No joke, you guys. I was like, why don't I just check my library and see what the odds are if the audiobook is available? It's 1000% available. So there's a long waiting list for the ebook of it, but the audiobook is there. So you know what I'm gonna be doing? Listening to it, and then I'm gonna read The Hawthorne Legacy, which comes out on September 7th. So I'm not gonna tell you too much about that book because I don't wanna ruin anything, but Inheritance Games is about a girl named Avery. She is a junior in college. She lives with her older sister. They randomly one day get a visit from an attorney, and he basically tells them that Avery has been named in the will of this bazillionaire down in Texas who Avery doesn't even know. Like, she was just like, I don't even know who this guy is. How can I be in his will? So she goes down to Texas, and sure enough, $46.2 billion is what Tobias Hawthorne is worth. And for some reason, which nobody can fathom, Avery is in his will. So she winds up moving into his house where his children and his 4 grandsons live, who are also kind of around her age. And there is mystery and there is suspense. It's a YA thriller. And I just devoured it. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. So if you haven't already read it, I highly, hugely recommend it. And if you have, book number 2 is coming out in no time. The next book I want to talk about is one that already came out in the UK and I read it, so the US release is this month, and it's The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This book, I read this back in May with Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library, and I said it in my May wrap-up. Definitely either buddy read this book with someone or find someone who's already read it that you can talk to about it, because this is one of those books that's like weird and twisty and really good, but there were 1000% parts of this book where Lindsay and I were both just like, if I was doing this alone, I think I would have quit on this, because when it gets weird, you're sort of like, am I losing it? Like, or am I missing something? Is something going over my head? Did I miss a few pages? Like, what on earth is happening here? But it's so good. And it's one of these books where I'm only gonna read you even a little part of what's in the front cover, because I feel like the less you know, the better, but you need a little bit of context. So this says, this is the story of a murderer, a stolen child, revenge. This is the story of Ted, who lives with his daughter Lauren and his cat Olivia in an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. All of these things are true, and yet some of them are lies. And this is very much like, you think you know, but you have no idea kind of a book. And I wound up loving it. I love the twists and turns. It's the kind of book where I feel like it might make some people bananas. You're not supposed to get what's going on for quite a long time. And you're supposed to feel lost. And if you feel lost, it's like you're doing it right. Like you should feel lost. So it has so many rave reviews on it. It's definitely not going to be a book for everybody, but if you have a curiosity about it, I hugely recommend it. And again, find someone to talk to about it with, find someone to buddy read it with, and just be prepared for sort of some super weirdness, but like in a really good way. Like, is weird always, I feel like weird is always good. It's definitely like weird in a good way. The next book is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. And I actually pre-ordered this from Book Depository because it already came out in the UK. And it's currently unavailable because of shipping and distribution issues to Book Depository. So like my master plan of like, look at me, I'm gonna get this book early, basically blew up in my face. But it comes out in the US in September. So as of now, I'm holding for my UK copy of it. When it comes, it comes. And it's Alice Feeney. I read His and Hers last year, which I loved. I read Sometimes I Lie, her first book, when it came out, and I loved it. But His and Hers, I loved like even more. So I am, like, my expectations are so high about the dark messed upness that this is gonna have going for it. So this is about Mr. and Mrs. Wright, and they are married. They've been married for 10 years, Adam and Amelia. And they win a weekend away in Scotland where they go for their 10-year anniversary. And there's some trouble in the marriage. And it says 10 years of marriage, 10 years of secrets, and an anniversary they will never forget. So they both know that this weekend away will either make or break their marriage, but they didn't randomly win this trip. So one of them is lying and someone doesn't want them to live happily ever after. It's all I need to know. It's all I need to know. I'm so excited for this book. This is by far one of my most anticipated books of the year, never mind of the month. So I'm keeping my eye on the situation in the UK, but one way or another, I'm getting my hands on it and I'm going to read it. So that's Rock, Paper, Scissors. Another sequel coming out in September, which has already come out in the UK and I've already read, is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. So this is the third book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. It is the third and final. She has confirmed that it is the end of the series. So you know what that means. It means an all bets are off kind of a situation. And I finished this a couple of days ago and I'm still processing a whole host of super complicated feelings that I have about this book and this series. And I think I'm gonna have to like wait till I do my wrap up to like fully articulate how I feel about this book, and not in a, I love the series. I love the series so much, but I feel like I still can't even connect the words to express how I feel about this book. But if you haven't read this series, I highly recommend it. And book number one, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is the one I will tell you about because I'm not gonna ruin anything, of course, is about a girl named Pip. She is a senior in high school, and as part of her senior project, she winds up investigating a murder that happened in her town involving 2 teenagers 5 years ago. And she basically doesn't believe that the resolution of the case was correct, and she's digging in. Basically, Pip starts peeling the onion and poking the bear and gets herself into a whole mess of trouble because somebody does not want her sneaking or sniffing around, trying to find out what actually happened back then. And it is so smart in the writing. It is so smart in the characters. The mystery was really strong. She's interviewing people, so there's a lot of mixed media, text messages, interview transcripts, police reports. You have, in book number 2, there's a podcast introduced into it. So there's like very clever use of social media, cell phone information, all of that. So it's a modern story, but it's a YA book. I found it so easy to connect to as an adult. I thought the writing was so good. I thought it was so well done. So this book was super, super high on my list for this year and I loved it. It's huge, you guys. Like she does not skimp. This is a 540 page book, 550 page book. Such a brilliant series, such a brilliant series. So the next book is Lisa Jewell's The Night She Disappeared. And I talked about this in July when it came out in the UK, but again, this is the US release date is September. So I didn't pre-order this. I don't have this one yet. I'm a big Lisa Jewell fan, but I also have several of her books on my shelf that I haven't read yet. So I want to try and read a bit of what I have before I pull the trigger on this one. Not because I don't think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be great, but I'm just trying to, again, every once in a while, I decide to attempt to have some degree of self-control. So we'll see what happens. But this one has two timelines. So in 2017, we have 19-year-old Tallulah goes to a party. She leaves home, leaves her baby with her mom, and she never comes back. And then 2 years later in 2019, it says Sophie is walking in the woods near the boarding school where her boyfriend has just started work as head teacher, and she sees a note affixed to a tree, and the note says, "Dig here." So it says, a cold case, an abandoned mansion, family trauma, and dark secrets lie at the heart of Lisa Jewell's remarkable new novel. All that to say, Lisa Jewell's book is coming out in the US this month, so snag it if you're into it. So the next book I actually got from Amazon's First Reads. I haven't read it yet, but I have it, and it's These Toxic Things by Rachel Housel Hall. So I've read a few of Rachel's books, and I have a little bit of, I feel like, a complicated relationship with her books, because I enjoy a lot of aspects of them, but in both books I've had some issues with either the plotting or the pacing or maybe some of the characters. So like, I haven't wholly loved it, but I also like them enough to continue reading her books, if that makes sense. And I've heard a lot of really great things about These Toxic Things, so I'm in, and it sounds good. So again, I have it, so I'm gonna read it. And this one is about a woman named Mickey Lambert, and she creates digital scrapbooks for her clients, ensuring that precious souvenirs aren't forgotten or lost. So her latest client, a woman named Nadia, winds up dying from an apparent suicide, and Mickey wants to honor her last wish and by curating peculiar objects that this woman has been holding on to, which includes a music box, a hair clip, and a keychain. She has 12 mementos in all that must have meant so much to Nadia that she's collected them over the years. But it says these tokens mean a lot to someone else too. So it's becoming a mystery Mickey has to solve because she starts getting threatening messages and all the questions. Who used to own these? Who was threatening her? What's the what? Like, what's the deal here? And then it says, discovering the truth means crossing paths with a long dormant serial killer, ha ha ha, and navigating the secrets of a sinister past. One that might, Mickey fears, be inescapably intertwined with hers. So, you know I love me a serial killer. Again, I'm hearing such great things about this, and there's enough that I enjoy about her books that I want to read more. And this character, Mickey, just sounds fun to me. So, a dead woman's cherished trinkets become pieces to a terrifying puzzle. Let me know if any of you guys have read this one yet, because again, it came out on Amazon First Read, so you could get kind of like an advance-ish copy of it, but I'm intrigued. I also find the cover to be super cool. So there's a few books that I'm not super familiar with, so I'm also going to do some screen recording Goodreads situation here so that we can read through it together, because I don't want to get anything wrong or miss anything, but these are ones that I have not talked about yet. So the first one is Summer Sons by Lee Mandello, and this is about Andrew and Eddie. So they were like the best of friends, basically like brothers, and then Eddie winds up leaving to go to do his graduate program at Vanderbilt, but then 6 months later, the day before Andrew was supposed to join him in Nashville, Eddie dies of an apparent suicide. And he leaves Andrew a horrible inheritance, a roommate he doesn't know, friends he never asked for, and a gruesome phantom with bleeding wrists that mutters for revenge. So safe to say this is on the horror, maybe ghosty scale. And it says, as Andrew searches for the truth of Eddie's death, he uncovers the lies and secrets left behind by the person he trusted the most, discovering a family history soaked in blood and death. This might be a little bit out of my comfort zone as I read this, but I'm still super intrigued by it. So whirling between the backstabbing academic world where Eddie spent his days and in the circle of hot boys, fast cars, and hard drugs that ruled Eddie's nights, the walls Andrew has built against the world begin to crumble, letting in the phantom that hungers for him. I don't know. There's just something about this. I feel like, again, I read Pet Sematary and I'm like, I'm gonna read me some horror. So I'm trying to like expand my horizons. It sounds really interesting to me. Gothic, horror, thrillery, mystery, again, maybe ghosty. Probably read it by the light of day. But as I start to amp up my fall creepy reads, this one seems to fit the bill. So the next book is called Nice Girls, and this is by Catherine Dang, and this is a debut novel, and I've suddenly, no joke, started seeing it everywhere on Instagram, it seems. So I'm not the only person who's excited for this one. This one comes out September 14th. So this is about several girls, and it says it explores the hungry, angry, dark side of girlhood and dares to ask what is most dangerous to a woman, showing the world what it wants to see or who she really is. So growing up in Liberty Lake, Minnesota, so many tongue twisters, you guys. So Mary was chubby, awkward, and smart. So she winds up going to an Ivy League school. It's her ticket out. And then 3 years later, she comes back from Cornell, having been kicked out at the beginning of her senior year, but she won't tell anyone why. And they call her Ivy League Mary. And when she returns, she is thinner, cynical, and restless. So she's working at the local grocery store. She sees some familiar faces from high school, tries to make sense of her past, and then Olivia Willand, a rising social media star, winds up going missing, and everybody at Liberty Lake, including Mary, is like super obsessed to find out what happened to her, because Mary and Olivia were best friends when they were kids. But Mary knows the real Olivia, apparently. She knows what was behind that social media facade. And it says, as the world worries for perfect, lovely Olivia, Mary can't help but hate her. So there was another girl who went missing, a 19-year-old girl named DeMaria Jackson, whose disappearance has gone under the radar, but Mary thinks they are somehow tied together. So where did Olivia go? What happened to DeMaria? And Mary delves deeper into the lives of the two missing girls. And it says, old wounds bleed fresh and painful secrets threaten to destroy everything. So this is kind of compared to All the Missing Girls and The Luckiest Girl Alive. I loved All the Missing Girls with Megan Miranda. I did not love Luckiest Girl Alive. That book gave me rage. And I'm still gonna look into this one because it says devilishly dark. I love the dark and twisted female friendship. I love just the mysteries and how it's all gonna tie together. So I'm talking about it because I'm here for it. The next book is called The Missing Hours by Julia Dahl. And this is about a girl named Claudia. So she is one of these, on the surface, she's got it all. She's starting NYU in the fall. She's got a famous family. She's got lots of Instagram followers. She's got a giant trust fund. Everything is picture perfect on the surface. But then you peel behind the curtain and it says things are a lot messier than they seem. Her parents are separating, she's just been humiliated by a sleazy documentary, and her sister's about to have a baby with a man she barely knows. So when Claudia heads off to school, she is determined to find a more meaningful, positive path for her life. And then one drunken night, everything changes. I keep doing in this video because I'm excited for these books. So she goes out, she gets super drunk, and the next day she's got a very hazy memory, and it says Claudia cuts herself off from her family, seeking solace in a new friendship. But when the rest of school comes back from spring break, Claudia is missing. Suddenly the whole city is trying to piece together the hours of that terrible night. So I haven't seen this one pop up in a lot of places yet, but it might just be a matter of time. But it sounds really interesting to me, and it says it's about obsession, privilege, and the explosive consequences of one violent act. So, I don't know, it sounds good. It doesn't have a lot of ratings yet on Goodreads, but 3.84 stars is a pretty good start. The next book sounds also super dark and creepy, and it's called Dark Things I Adore by Katie Latari. And this one, I'm just gonna skip like all the way to the bottom of the synopsis, where it says a searing thriller of trauma, dark academia, complicity, and revenge. It unravels the realities behind campfire legends, the horrors that happen in the dark, the girls who become cautionary tales, and the guilty who go unpunished. Until now. So this is 3 campfire secrets, 2 witnesses, 1 dead in the trees, and the woman, 30 years later, bent on making the guilty finally pay. So we have a 1988 timeline, we have a 2018 timeline, we have a group of outcasts at a camp in Maine, and it says the truth they tell that night around the campfire will come back to haunt them in ways more deadly than they dreamed. And only Audra knows what happened that summer in 1988. So this kind of gives me like a little bit Last Time I Lied vibes, in that you've got like the summer camp kind of creepy factor. Maine makes me think of Stephen King, and again, I've read one book and I feel like I'm like, just keep on talking about the man. But the dark academia, again, these dark and twisted female friendships, mystery in the past, mystery in the present, multiple timelines. I am just, it comes out in September, but this screams October to me. So yeah, I'll let you guys know. So the next book I have is called Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian. And I saw this on Scared Straight Reads Instagram, and I legit was like, he posted the photo of the book, I read the little blurb, and I was just like, this is me. Like, I'm not Chloe, but oh my God, this book sounds so good. So this is another debut, which, hi, all the crazy debuts that are so good. And this is about a girl named Chloe. So she is a freshman and she's at this DC-based college, and she's part of an unusual clinical study for psychopaths, students like herself who lack empathy and can't comprehend emotions like fear or guilt. So it says she's a leggings wearing hot girl next door who also happens to be a psychopath. Her hobbies include yoga lattes, frat parties, and plotting to kill Will Bachman, a childhood friend who grievously wronged her. But then one of the students in the study is found murdered, and it says Chloe goes from hunter to prey. So it's a game of cat and mouse, and she has to decide if she can trust any of her fellow psychopaths, because everybody knows you should never trust a psychopath. So, this one just sounds so good. This also comes out September 7th. I'm just hearing nothing but great things about this one too. And again, I feel like I'm so, I don't even want to say like doing well with debuts, because I don't even know how many debuts I've read this year. I should check that out. But I just feel like there's so many great new books by authors I'm not familiar with. So whether this is their debut or not, as it is in this case, or if it's someone who has a backlist that I just haven't read yet, but I'm excited to discover some new authors. And again, there seem to be more and more dark and messed up stories coming out. Dark and messed up people doing dark and messed up things. So I'm here for it. So next up is the newest book from Kimberly McCreet, and it's called Friends Like These. I have been sleeping on Kimberly McCreet. So I have A Good Marriage and I haven't read it yet. And I keep saying I'm gonna read Reconstructing Amelia because it was likened to I will not remember the book as I sit here. But I've heard great things about it. Anyway, I've heard great things about her as well, and this one also just sounds right up my alley. So again, this is like dark and messed up female friendships. So we have a group of college friends 10 years after graduation, and they reunite, and it's a reunion marked by lies, betrayal, and murder. So it's low-key giving me In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, but different. So this one says, everyone has those friends. Doesn't matter how long it's been or how badly they've occasionally behaved or how late it is when the call finally comes. You show up, no questions asked. So this reminds me of The Lion Game by Ruth Ware, very much so. So this is how the 5 of them wind up in the Catskills. They had the best of intentions, especially after what happened to Alice all those years ago. We can't bear to think of losing anyone else. In fact, we'll do anything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again. We'll go so much farther than we ever thought we would. So it's secrets, there's mystery in the past, something's happening in the present here, unconditional love between friends, but it can turn ugly. Or maybe that's just us. After all, we've already been through so much together and we have so much more to hide. So this is another September 7th one. I've seen a lot of like pre-buzz for this too, but again, I enjoy her very much. I've listened to so many interviews and like craft talks with her as well. And I'm like, ugh, I need to pick up A Good Marriage because I have it. And it was like, that again, it was like a have to have kind of a book, and I will read it. I will read it, I will read it, I will read it. And I am excited for this one. And again, that's why I'm talking about it. The next book on my list is My Sweet Girl by Amanda J. Atisa, and this has been on my list, no joke, since this summer when I was watching Alive with Abby from Crime by the Book and Riley Sager, and they were talking about upcoming books that they were super excited about, and I added it to my cart on Amazon, and I was like, September? I can't wait till September. And here we are, it's September. So another one in the pre-order bucket. But this says, Paloma thought her perfect life would begin once she was adopted and made it to America. But she's about to find out that no matter how far you run, your past always catches up to you. So Paloma was adopted from a Sri Lankan orphanage, and she's had the best of everything. Schools, money, parents so perfect that she fears she'll never live up to them. So now she's 30 years old, recently cut off from her parents' funds, and decides to sublet the second bedroom of her overpriced San Francisco apartment to Arun, who recently moved from India. Paloma has to admit it feels good helping someone pave their way in America. That is, until Arun discovers Paloma's darkest secrets, one that could jeopardize her own fragile place in this country. But before Paloma can pay Arun off, she finds him face down in a pool of blood. She flees the apartment, but by the time the police arrive, there's no body. There's no evidence that Arun ever even existed in the first place. So Paloma's afraid that this is all somehow tangled up in the desperate action she took to escape Sri Lanka so many years ago. So did her secret die with Arun, or is she now in even greater danger than before? So you guys have heard me talk about Abby so many times on here. And when she read this book, she was like, I'm gonna say it, I think this might be my most favorite thriller of the year. And she is not one to just throw a favorite on top of a book if she doesn't actually love it. And she was raving about this book. And again, I instantly was like, ding, 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 ding. I need to read it. So I'm very, very excited for this one. This comes out later in the month. No, it doesn't. It comes out on the 14th. And I'll let you guys know when I get it and read it, what I think of it. Also another debut, by the way. If anyone's keeping score out there, I should be keeping score here. It's another debut. So another sequel which I mentioned is The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, and that is the sequel to the Thursday Murders Club. I should put it over here, which I haven't read yet, but in case you guys have read this, the sequel is going to be out in the US in September. I want to say it already came out in the UK, but I am interested in this too. So I bought this for my dad for Christmas, and then he handed it off to me when he was done. And this is about a peaceful retirement community, and there's a group of people there, 4 friends in the retirement community, who kind of become the Thursday Murder Club. When someone, a local developer, is found dead, they find themselves in the middle of their first live case. So this one just sounds fun. I've heard great things about it. Again, my dad really enjoyed it. So if I like it, I'm happy to know there's already a sequel that's out. But again, just a heads up in case you guys are looking to continue in this series. So that's gonna do it for today. I am 1000% losing the light outside. It is raining. I've got all sorts of artificial light going on here, and it's time to go. But thank you guys for hanging out and watching today. Let me know if you have read any of these yet, or any of these on your most anticipated list. Have you pre-ordered anything? What am I missing? What books didn't I talk about? I owe you guys the FOMO video of all the books I missed when I did my most anticipated book videos. So there's so many things that I want to just like cobble together and do for you guys, and I'm gonna work on that. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out today and spending some of your time with me, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Thanks everybody. Bye.